Hello everyone, welcome to the online classes of biology for class 12th. Today we'll take up chapter 13, Organisms and Populations. We have already discussed part 1. Today we'll start with part 2, in which we will discuss populations. First, we'll start with the population attributes. In nature, we rarely find isolated single individual of any species. Majority of them lives in groups in a well-defined geographical area, share or compete for similar resources, potentially interbreed and thus constitute a population. Population has birth rates and death rates that we call natality and mortality respectively. In a population, these rates refer to per capita births and deaths respectively. The rates hence are expressed as change in numbers, increase or decrease with respect to members of the population. It is called population density. Now about the population growth. It keeps changing in time depending on various factors including food availability, predation pressure and reduced weather. This gives us idea of the population, whether it is flourishing or declining. The density of a population in a given habitat during a given period fluctuates due to changes in 4 basic processes, 2 of which, natality and immigration, contribute an increase in population density, and the other 2, mortality and immigration, decreases. First, we'll start with natality. It refers to the number of births during a given period in the population that are added to the initial density. Second is mortality. It is the number of deaths in the population during a given period. Immigration. It is the number of individuals of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere during the time period under consideration. Immigration. It is the number of individuals of the population who left the habitat and gone elsewhere during the time period under consideration. Now, we are able to see the population density and how it gets affected. Immigration with a positive sign shows that it increases the density. Natality also increases the density of population, while immigration and mortality decreases the population density. So, if n is the population density at time t, then its density at t plus 1 is, and t plus 1 equals to nt plus b plus I, that is the birth rate and immigration, minus d plus e, that is death rate and immigration. So we can find out the population density by using this formula. Now about the growth models for population. First one is the exponential growth model. When resources in the habitat are unlimited, each species has the ability to realize fully its innate potential to grow in number, as Darwin observed while developing his theory of natural selection. If in a population of size n, the birth rates, not the total number but per capita births, are represented as B and death rates, again per capita death rates as D, then the increase or decrease in N during a unit time period T, dN by dt will be, that is the population density. So dN by dt equals to B minus D into N. Let B minus D equals to R, then dN by dt equals to Rn. The R in this equation is called the intrinsic rate of natural increase and is a very important parameter chosen for assessing impacts of any biotic or abiotic factor on population growth. With basic calculus, we can derive the integral form of the exponential growth equation as Nt equals to N0 ERT as a superscript, where Nt is the population density after time t and N0 is the population density at time 0 or the initial time period. R equals to intrinsic rate of natural increase. E is the base of natural log. Now the second growth model is logistic growth model. In nature, a given habitat has enough resources to support a maximum possible number beyond which no further growth is possible. Let's call this limit as nature's carrying capacity, represented by capital K, for that species in that habitat. A population growing in a habitat with limited resources shows initially a lag phase, followed by phases of acceleration and deceleration, and finally an asymptote when the population density reaches the carrying capacity. A plot of n in relation to time t results in a sigmoid curve. This type of population growth is called Wallace-Pearl logistic growth and is described by the following equation. dN by dt, it is the population density, equals to Rn within brackets k minus n by k, where n is the population density at time t, r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and k is the carrying capacity. Since resources for growth for most animal populations are finite and become limiting sooner or later, the logistic growth model is considered a more realistic one. Now about the life history variation. Populations evolve to maximize their reproductive fitness, also called Darwinian fitness. Some organisms breed only once in their lifetime, like Pacific salmon fish, bamboo, while others breed many times during their lifetime, mammals and most of the birds. Some produce a large number of small-sized offsprings, while the others produce a small number of large-sized offsprings. Now, population interactions. Interspecific interactions arise from the interaction of populations of two different species. They could be beneficial, detrimental, or neutral to one of the species or both. Assigning a positive sign for the beneficial interaction and negative sign for detrimental and 0 for neutral interaction. Let's look at all the possible outcomes of interspecific interactions. Here is a table which is showing species A, species B, and the name of interaction. Mutualism is when both the species are getting benefit. Competition, when both are getting affected in a negative way. And in predation, one species gets the benefit while the other faces harm. In parasitism, again the same condition. One species gets the benefit and the another at the harm. Commensalism, one species gets the benefit and other remains neutral. And in amensalism, one species is neutral while the another one is negatively getting affected. Both the species benefit in mutualism and both lose in competition in their interactions with each other. In both parasitism and predation, only one species benefits and the interaction is detrimental to the other species. The interaction where one species is benefited and the other is neither benefited nor harmed is called commensalism. In amensalism, on the other hand, one species is harmed whereas the other is unaffected. Predation, parasitism, and commensalism share a common character. The interacting species live closely together. First, we'll discuss predation. Beside acting as a conduit for energy transfer across trophic levels, predators play other important roles. They keep prey population under control, but for predators, prey species could achieve very high population densities and cause ecosystem instability. If a predator is too efficient and overexploits its prey, then the prey might become extinct, and following it, the predator will also become extinct for lack of food. This is the reason why predators in nature are prudent. For plants, herbivores are the predators. Nearly 25% of insects are known to be phytophagous, that is, they feed on the plant sap and other parts of plants. The problem is particularly severe for the plants because, unlike animals, they cannot run away from their predators. Plants therefore have evolved an astonishing variety of morphological and chemical defenses against herbivores. Second is competition. When Darwin spoke of the struggle for existence and survival of the fittest in nature, he was convinced that interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution. Competition is best defined as a process in which the fitness of one species, measured in terms of its R, the intrinsic rate of increase, is significantly lower in the presence of another species. When resources are limited, the competitively superior species will eventually eliminate the other species, but evidence for such competitive exclusion occurring in nature is not always conclusive. Gauss' competitive exclusion principle states that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. This may be true if resources are limited, but not otherwise. occurrence of interspecific competition in nature, they point out that species facing competition might evolve mechanisms that promote coexistence rather than exclusion. One such mechanism is resource partitioning. If two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. MacArthur showed that five closely related species of warblers living on the same tree were able to avoid competition and coexist due to behavioral changes or differences in their foraging activities. Third is parasitism. Considering that the parasitic mode of life ensures free lodging and meals, it is not surprising that parasitism has evolved in so many taxonomic groups, from plants to higher vertebrates. Parasites that feed on external surface of the host organisms are called ectoparasites. The most familiar examples of this group are the lice on humans and ticks on dogs. Many marine fish are infested with ecoparasitic copepods. Endoparasites are those that live inside the host body at different sites, like liver, kidney, lungs, red blood cells, etc. The life cycles of endoparasites are more complex because of their extreme specialization. Their morphological and anatomical features are greater simplified while emphasizing their reproductive potential. Brood parasitism, a very important topic for exams, in birds is a fascinating example of parasitism in which the parasitic bird lays its egg in the nest of its host and lets the host incubate them. During the course of evolution, the eggs of the parasitic bird have evolved to resemble the host's egg in size and color to reduce the chances of the host bird detecting the foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. Fourth is commensalism. This is the interaction in which one species benefits and other is neither harmed nor benefited. An orchid growing as an epiphyte on a mango branch and barnacles growing on the back of a whale benefit, while neither the mango tree nor the whale derives any apparent benefit. Example of commensalism is the interaction between sea anemone that has stinging tentacles and the clownfish that lives among them. Fifth type of interaction is mutualism. This interaction confers benefits on both the interacting species. Lichens represent an intimate mutualistic relationship between a fungus and photosynthesizing alga or cyanobacteria. Similarly, the mycorrhiza are associations between fungi and the roots of higher plants. The fungi help the plant in the absorption of essential nutrients from the soil, while the plant in turn provides the fungi with energy-yielding carbohydrates. Plant-animal interactions often involve co-evolution of the mutualists, that is, the evolution of the flower and its pollinator species are tightly linked with one another. In many species of fig trees, there is a tight one-to-one relationship with the pollinator species of wasp. mutual relationship between fig tree and wasp. Fig flower is pollinated by wasp and wasp laying eggs in a fig fruit as visible in the image. Orchids showed a bewildering diversity of floral patterns, many of which have evolved to attract the right pollinator insect, bees and bumblebees, and ensure guaranteed pollination by it. The Mediterranean orchid Ophrys employs sexual descent to get pollination done by a species of bee. One petal of its flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female of the bee in size, color, and markings. The male bee is attracted to what is perceived as a female, pseudocopulates with the flower, and during that process is dusted with pollen from the flower. When this same bee pseudocopulates with another flower, it transfers pollen to it and thus pollinates the flower. Here the image is showing the bumblebee and the orchid. We have discussed all the attributes of population as well as the population interactions. Thank you for the patient listening. Take care.